Well, students, we're going to keep working on these owls today. If there's something that you do need to draw with pencil, I would like you to finish that up. So if you need to draw your sky, if that's wind, clouds, stars, you may. And then when you're done, I will give everybody a marker. I would like you to trace everything out. You can see that I've already traced out my owl. And then I'm going to trace out my background too. When you have everything traced, sometimes I do like to put a few thicker or wider lines in it. You can see that I've got some thicker lines here. I filled in some details in the eyes. This has a kind of a thicker line here. There are some thicker or wider lines here. So the lines that are more black are what I'm talking about, that are thicker. If you have that all done and you have any pencil lines that you would like to erase, you can erase those out. Then the remaining part of our time we're gonna spend doing some shading. And shading is when we are coloring light to dark or dark to light. And you can do that with color, but we're gonna do it with pencil to do some black to gray to white shading. So here, got things erased out. Now I'm going to get my pencil out and I'm gonna start shading. Now this is something that we did already with your cityscapes. We did shading. So it's kind of connecting back to our prior knowledge, and the idea is definitely not to just color it all in. If you color it all in, then the whole paper would just end up turning gray. So here, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go from this black line and then I'm gonna shade it in lighter and lighter and lighter. Then I'm gonna do that here. I'm gonna go lighter and lighter and lighter. Trying not to cover up a bunch of my lines. So I go from black to gray to white. Black to gray to white. And one of the reasons that I'm starting up here too is so that my hand isn't smearing in it, because if I were down here with it, then my hand could be rubbing on it and smearing my work. So I do want to leave quite a few sections of it white, but I'm just kind of looking to see with my observations areas that are darker that could use more shading. Like this, I probably could have filled that in with my marker, but it looks like that shape here is pretty dark. Now I'm looking here, I see that this side of the beak has shading and it's getting darker and darker and darker. It looks kind of like the shadows on that side. I see there's some shading under here. So just continue looking at the picture that you picked and decide where is it gonna be the darkest, and then gradually go from black to gray to white. As I finish up with the head of this owl, then I will move down to the body. I have to add a little more shading in here. I can see this is really dark on that edge. If you choose to blend it a little bit with your finger, you can. I wouldn't go crazy and smear it too much, otherwise you're gonna lose all those white spaces. But sometimes that can help create some nice transitions. So now I'm gonna work on these feathers here. Just being careful to still leave some white spots and not to make it too gray. It looks like it's pretty dark right here. This would be an area that would need to be more black. And then it looks like there might be some shading detail down here. Just blend that in a little bit. Be careful too not to get your finger too dark with pencil, because then it'll put fingerprints on your work too. Now that I have that part done, then I can see this part down here is very dark. So that's like in a shadow under the branch where the light won't reach, so it creates a shadow, which shadows typically are dark. Now, and I see that this area is right here pretty dark. Now that my owl has shading on it, I'm gonna do some shading in the background. You can see the underside of this branch, that's the darker side because it's at the bottom, and then it gradually gets lighter towards the top. Then I'm gonna start doing some shading in the background. So here, with these lines, to keep it simple, I'm just gonna find a line and then go lighter and lighter and lighter. Find a line, go lighter and lighter. Find a line, go lighter and lighter. Then that will create more of a 3D look to it. So just find any of those lines and details and then put shading next to them. If you have an object like a plant or a tree or a bush, you can see I'm just adding some shading to that too. I'm going pretty fast because I want you guys to have more work time, but you'll have much more time than I am to give these the necessary detail and demonstrating your skills of observation. Now that I have that bottom section done, then I would shade in my river, I can start working on this rock. This rock is black, so I'm gonna make that really dark. And then I can start shading in this stuff over here too. And these leaves are pretty dark, so we'll make those stand out with more shading. Still leaving some white sections in there, giving enough shadow and contrast to pull that away from the background. And then I'm gonna shade into my mountains. So here, I'd probably just pick one side. Here we'll get lighter and lighter and lighter. So I'm gonna make the right side of them the darkest. Do the same thing on that side, and so shade from black to gray to white. And then we'll do the same thing on these hills. Last part that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on my sky, and I do feel that my hand is kind of rubbing on it a little bit, so I do want to be careful not to smear it much. But these clouds and details can get some shading into them. Even the stars could get a little bit of shading. And then usually shade the bottom of them a little bit, leave the top white. And then it depends on what kind of sky you have. I know that a night sky is usually pretty dark, but I don't want to color my whole sky in too dark. So I might just make a little bit of shading from the bottom here, and then just pretend that the moonlight kind of lightens up my sky a little bit. Gonna frame out my owl. And then we've got a realistic looking owl with shading from dark to light. And if you cover something up and you need to erase it, or you need to come back and add an extra layer of color, really I'm looking to see that you've got some dark areas and some lighter areas to show your skills of observation. So let's work on these and finish these up today.